producer and screenwriter.
And Brian Wirtz, are you here? Brian? Yeah, there you are.
Brian's coming.
All right. I also want to give a couple shout outs to folks that are here in the audience. Anna Pittman is producer. Can you stand, please? And Ryder McNair, the composers here. I love your music so much.
I guess this question is for Clay and Shannon. So you discovered these never before heard audio tapes, and can you just tell us about that process?
Sure. I mean, that was something that the family offered up to us right in our first conversation, and immediately we saw it as the way to, see these new layers or get Andy to sort of speak for himself in a way throughout the film. But then it was like, well, how are we going to use it? And editorially became a challenge of like, well, what are the best things to pick and how are we going to lay it out? And I think, we first sort of laid it out in a timeline over his career as they were happening, and then looked for the bites that were, like the most humanizing, the most things that were going to give you these insights that maybe were unique and brought Andy down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I think like the first thing we do is listen to the tapes and tag them by themes, which is sort of something we do for all of our projects, I think, for Archive. And it just like listening to those tapes, you immediately get into his world and you start to feel like you're really getting to know a person.
Was there any,
And there's 84 hours.
and you listened to all 84 hours?
For sure, yes.
Congrats.
Many people on our team listen. Katie Wise, our story producer, we all listen to it. Yeah, I mean,
and have a different experience too. And that's what's sort of fun about the collaborative process is different people take in different parts in different ways, and so it's nice to sort of then come together.
Were there things that you wish you could have included that didn't make the?
I mean, there's so many things.
I'm sure, 84 hours, right?
There's a pretty long cut that I'd see.
Ross, whatever do you mean? I mean, there's tons of things. He loved Coney Island so much. There's moments where he would go and either on the Staten Island ferry or just walking around Coney Island, he would just be trying out characters on people. A lot of that audio is just like so crackled and bad that it was like hard to make out, but it was a trip. I love that stuff.
I could have used more wrestling.
Yes.
And you were saying that you've tried to get marionette puppets in some of your films, but this one felt right?
Yes, it's been a long. I don't know. I love puppets. I think they're an amazing tool for like instead of recreations or animation. And I was just waiting for a project that it seemed organic. And then when this happened, and I started watching all these videos of Andy and a lot of his performances, I was like, oh my gosh, he really had puppets in a lot of his act, not only in college, but in some of his early stuff. And then talking to his family and talking about how much he loved Howdy Doody in that moment of just really like how real that moment was between them. That solidified it for me of like, this makes sense to try to bring this story, the Huey Williams story that he cared so much about, to life in a way that I think that he would maybe appreciate.
Can you talk about the editing process and how do you tackle something like this?
You can talk, Shannon.
I mean, Clay started out in editing, so he is very hands-on in that process.
So Luis Lopez was our editor. I've known Luis for 20 years now. And so we have a great shorthand, and then we had some additional editing by Carla Rhoda, who's also just love her. She's amazing too. So between the three of us, it was like trying to figure out the way that was going to be in some way doing due diligence to Andy and his essence, but also like allowing you to go on the emotional journey of his life. There was something, we tried lots of different ways to go non-linear, to make it more abstract, but there was something that felt more satisfying for us in our emotional journey of just like watching his life mostly play out as it happened and having the context of what happened in his early life first. And it mirrored Huey Williams' story. Like how
There-
you plotted
two
that.
two things. So Clay and Luis and Shannon, we've all worked together a bunch, and there was an old project we did that was true crime where Clay and Luis would just constantly quote Andy Kaufman. It was
Yeah.
years ago. So that's when this came to me. I was like, I should bring it to these guys. The other thing is they experimented in the way that Andy would have wanted them to. I mean, there was one cut that was bizarre, to say the least.
Yeah, we sent it to Ross and he was like, what the, that was, it didn't make any sense.
What did you call it again? The thing that like spit out
Oh, I mean, well, so the concept was that there was a documentary generator.
documentary generator.
That basically split the documentary into 5 different pieces in 5 different documentary genres. And there was going to be like a true crime Andy, there was going to be like a Ken Burns Andy, and there was going to, yeah.
The Predator one.
Yeah.
We made this version too, by the way, like.
That's how fast
haven't-
Luis is at everything.
I haven't thought about it since the first time I watched it. I had to sort of block it out of my memory. But
It got weird.
That was a interesting day.
So to answer your question, the editing process was exploring many different avenues in order to get where we got.
Through Andy fashion.
Indeed. You know, do you think Andy Kaufman would be, how would he be received today, do you think?
I mean, I think that Andy's legacy is seen in a lot of popular comedy all around. So anything from Nathan Fielder, we show some of those clips, you know,
Right.
like Tim and Eric, Eric Andre, Nathan, Gerard Carmichael, they like are really popular and just doing things that are extending the form and extending, I think, what Andy was into and trying to do. I mean, Andy, to me, was ahead of his time 40 years ago, so I have no clue what he would be doing now. I mean, like, he would be, like, on Mars somewhere. I have no idea.
There's something interesting though that did happen. We were curious to know, like at our first feedback screening, we invited a lot of younger women because we were curious to know how they might react to like the wrestling
Sure.
and all of that. And they were like, Andy Kaufman's a feminist. Like it was the opposite of what our concerns were, and that was really reassuring.
Yeah, Andy got his flowers, getting inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. Because he changed wrestling really forever. I don't know if he realized he was doing it at the time, but he was really the first celebrity to ever enter that world. It was so close-knit. It's one of the reasons why, you know, we, Seven Bucks, Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, why we became a part of this project, because he wrestled the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. That's where Dwayne's father wrestled, Rocky Johnson. That's where Dwayne wrestled early in his career. And nobody, I mean, as these guys know, as I told them ad nauseum, my uncle was a writer on Taxi and co-wrote all the Latka episodes. And he didn't know. He told me stories about how Tony Danza offered to go down to Memphis with Andy and be his backup. And when I first started work, I worked at WWE for a while. When I first started working there, my uncle said, whatever you do, stay away from Jerry Lawler. He's bad news. You don't want to mess with him. That's how like deeply committed Andy was to not, as they say in wrestling, breaking kayfabe and not letting the audience or anyone in on the secret. And then, you know, 2 years or 3 years after his Memphis run, WWE had Mr. T wrestle at the first WrestleMania, and that opened the floodgates for celebrities and wrestling to become this giant thing, mainstream. And, you know, Andy was the reason for all of that.
Super interesting. Do we have any questions from the audience? Right here, sure. Oh, you first, and then we'll get to you.
So in this movie, we really see this whole chain between, was Andy ever able to live without sense of control or being controlled or?
Can
The
any of
question,
us?
the question is, there's a lot of questions about puppet and puppeteer, and does Andy, was he ever,
Be free from that sense of being controlled or being having?
did he ever feel free of being in that sense of control?
I mean, I think that there was a controlling aspect to his personality from all the people we talked to. I don't think that he was just like maniacal, obsessive, compulsive control freak, but I do think that I think part of the puppetry to me is that he was a master manipulator. And so, you know, that he liked to do that on a literal and sort of existential level. So, but yeah, I mean, I think to the extent that any of us can control that urge.
Back here. Yes, you, go ahead.
When did you first come in contact with Andy Kaufman's work, and what initially struck you to explore it more?
And what was when did you first get into contact with Andy Kaufman's work, and why did you?
So, like SNL was big in my house. I grew up watching that. So I remember reruns and seeing him back in the day when I was a kid. But it really wasn't until the advent of the internet. I mean, I watched Man on the Moon, but like being able to go back when YouTube came out and being able to see like all the I'm From Hollywood, that doc, and you know, a lot of these old bits that I had not been exposed to. What drew me to him was his ability in his performances to sort of have this large dynamic range of emotion that he's evoking from the audience, and oftentimes sort of contrasting emotions, things that are like very sweet but very full of anger, or you know, absurd and rage all at the same time. That I think that's for me how I experience the world of like, I'm never feeling one thing at any given one time. There's always like a stew of many different emotions at once. And that's why I think Andy's performances sort of sit with me and are more powerful to me, and perhaps with, you know, other folks as well.
In the back.
Yeah, you just mentioned Man on the Moon. I'm just curious, I've heard different things about how his family reacted when that book came out, and that as amazing as Jim Carrey was, it really wasn't a true portrayal of Andy. So I'm wondering if you spoke to his brother and sister about Man on the Moon and how they felt that portrayal.
How did the family maybe had issues with Man on the Moon? How do you think does the family feel about this film, or do you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, the family were such a big part of this, as you can tell, like their contributions with their interviews and making all the connections to Andy's high school friends and giving us access to the archive. But it's hard, you know, it's their brother, and they always, you know, I think they miss him. And I don't think they loved the Jim Carrey film, but I think it's because it's Jim Carrey playing their brother. I think this is their brother actually getting to say who he is.
Yeah, the other thing that they said about that movie, they told me they did like it, but it was like, it was only showing a particular part of him that was perhaps a little more on the like someone who's wide-eyed, lost in their characters. And there was more persona and less person, and so hence why they were interested to share these tapes with us, to be like, here's the person we know, him talking in a more like being able to have this kind of conversation and being more grounded. And so that's what we were trying to show.
In the back. Yes, hand up.
Oh, me.
Mhm.
Oh.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
I was wondering.
You next, Dr. It's okay. You go ahead. We'll go you next.
Yeah, hi.
Oh.
I was, I'm assuming you used all of it in the movie. Is there anything in the tape that maybe you didn't include that probably surprised you, shocked you, or stood out?
Anything in the tapes that you couldn't include surprised you, shocked you?
I mean, there's like I said, there's lots of stuff beyond the Coney Island things. There's more more women that he called from the hate mail, which was probably one of my favorite parts of the film. And just the fact that he's like, we found so many clips of him being like, I didn't read that. Your hate mail's so stupid. And it's like, no, he read them, and he called a lot of people up. So there was a couple more of those phone calls that I thought was just like, it really showed like a vulnerability and a sense of listening to an audience. As an artist, you're constantly trying to, gauge what the audience is doing or feeling. Are they getting it? And it just was a window into that kind of thinking.
Did all the calls go that way?
Yeah, mostly. People are like, oh shoot, sorry, I take it back.
That's good. In the back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering because there was like another recent documentary like 2 years ago, and I was just wondering if this is all being done as like a run up to, like Andy revealing that he's still alive.
All these Andy Kaufman documentaries, is it just a ruse?
I wish, but I don't think so. I mean, I sort of subscribe to the idea that Andy passed, and that I think that yeah, we did look in every interview that we had. I asked people, I was like, so there's a couple docs being made about Andy at the same time. Do you think that he would have enjoyed that? And everyone said absolutely. So I feel like we were, if Andy would have liked it, then that's what should happen.
One more question. Here you go, right here.
Before I saw this movie, I was wondering how Andy Kaufman would react to the attack on the First Amendment and the arts that we see today. Have we spoken to his family and done the research? Do you have any thoughts on that?
How would Andy react to the current political climate and attack on the First Amendment?
I mean, I have never seen any clip of Andy being political at all, but I also know that he likes to stick it to the man and say fuck you sometimes, so I'm sure that he would be fighting for First Amendment and freedom of expression.
Yeah. And I'm sure he'd want us all to fight too. Big round of applause to the cast.